What's up, everyone? So if you don't know what I2P is, it's basically an anonymity network. Kind of like Tor, but designed a bit differently. For what it's worth, I like it better than Tor for a myriad of reasons. I made a video about it a while ago, but whatever. Basically, we were trying to simplify it. It's like instead of routing your traffic through a chain of relays to reach the regular internet, I2P keeps everything inside its own network, and basically you build encrypted tunnels to talk to other people on I2P, and nobody in between can actually see who's talking to who. One uses onion routing, which is Tor. The other uses garlic routing. Now, people use Tor for the same reason that they use I2P. That's privacy, stuff like censorship resistance, keeping their communications out of surveillance, so they can have a human right, which is privacy. It's a small network. A couple of weeks ago, around the 3rd of February, 700,000 hostile nodes tried to join all at once. That's roughly 39 times the entire network trying to shove through the door at the same time. And the damage was immediate. Routers started freezing once connections were actually past 60,000 tunnels. Looked like they built fine, but they ended up moving no data whatsoever. One user on the GitHub thread put it as invalid router info being fed into DHT. Apparently, transits build, but no data passes through the server. And that thread got over 160 comments. I2P got hit with the same kind of attack in February of 2023. And again, in February of 2024. So 3 Februaries in a row, the same technique, which is you call the Sybil attack, where you flood the entire network with fake nodes, same timing, so like when in 2026, the attack kicked off, I think everybody kind of assumed that it's the same state-sponsored operation coming back on a scheduled time frame. And that assumption was not true. It was a botnet called Kimwolf, and it showed up late last year and infected millions of IoT devices, TV streaming boxes, consumer routers, basically anything with garbage default security that had an internet connection and was available and could be talked to. So the same operation behind the night before Christmas DDoS campaign that set the record at 31.4 terabytes per second back in December. So they hit telecom providers essentially with a 902 hyper-volumetric attacks over 17 days. And we know this because the operators actually admitted on Discord that they actually accidentally disrupted I2P. They weren't trying to tear the network down. They were setting up a backup command and control server, basically. And security researchers had been killing their primary servers, which was over 500 C2 nodes that basically got null routed in January alone. And that's basically like, imagine you go to mail a letter, you stick it in the mailbox, but the letter just disappears into a black hole. That's kind of like what null routed is. It's not going anywhere. So essentially, the botnet operators panicked because of this constant takedown of their C2 servers. And in turn, they tried to route it, their botnet, through I2P for resilience. And 700,000 infected devices joining a 15,000 node or whatever network just didn't go over well. So botnet that sets DDoS records was running from takedowns while trying to hide. It accidentally crippled an anonymity network. I mean, it's kind of cool, right? Like you can't deny that it's kind of cool and unique. Like it's not the kind of thing that happens every day. The accident actually exposed something that researchers have been warning about for over a decade. Back in 2013, Christopher Egger and his team put out a paper called Practical Attacks Against the I2P Network, and they generated 50,000 fake router identities in under 30 minutes on a single 12-core server. Now, I2P had 18,000 or like 28,000 nodes at the time, and controlling less than 7% of flood-fill nodes, those are like the special nodes, basically, that keep the distributed hash table running. That was enough to start de-anonymizing people that were on the network. So I2P's own threat model docs show this. They say this very plainly. So they say the current defenses against unreliable, intermittent, or malicious flood-fill routers are poor. And when identity is free, Sybil can be a very potent technique for a powerful adversary. Now, the interesting thing with this whole thing is it was accidental, right? It wasn't intentional. And the fact that a botnet proved this by accident is also interesting. But the kind of worrying thing is like, imagining what a well-funded intelligence agency could actually do on purpose. Governments have been telling us for years that they want to go after anonymity networks. Like when I heard that Tor was having problems and it was kind of mirroring the, ban on real privacy coins like Monero, crazy stuff that's happening in the EU, Australia, and over here in the US, for that matter, with all the ID verification nonsense. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, this is a nation state. It's, 100%. I was wrong. That's not what it was. But Europol's head, which is Kathleen D. Boyle, basically came out and said back in 2025, anonymity is not a fundamental right. Meredith Whittaker over at Signal said that, they might pull out of Europe over the entirety of the whole chat control thing. And the NSA's, Tor stinks, which leaked forever ago, presentation that laid out how they would degrade anonymity services until people just gave up, was also a factor in my mindset in, thinking that it was a nation state. But GCHQ's internal docs are even blunter if you get into that, where they say, only very naughty people use Tor, which is retarded. But whatever, like these people are morons and they're creeps. They want to spy on everything. And it's just, that by default should tell you who they are. They have no interest in making sure you're safe or making sure children are safe or making sure puppies are safe or, any of the propaganda that's actually put out there. But nobody claimed the 2023 and the 2024 attacks. So, hey, I'm not that crazy, okay? It was every February. Now, obviously, Kimwolf explains 2026. Those first 2 years are open, I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. I know you guys, sometimes your takes are absolutely amazing. Anyways, credit where it's due. The I2P team, which, by the way, unlike the Tor team, is not a bunch of guys who make six figures and, sit at home and get government handouts. These are volunteers who do it for the passion of the network. So, awesome people. If you're going to donate, don't donate to Tor. Donate to I2P. 6 days after this attack, or after it started, basically, the network was still running at 50% capacity, and they shipped version 2.11.0. And this was not just some hot fix. They ended up shipping this hybrid ML-KEM plus X25519 encryption enabled by default at the ratchet layer, which built on NIST FIPS 203 standards. And that makes I2P one of the first anonymity networks running post-quantum crypto for all users by default. And they'd been working on it since June of last year. And it went opt-in beta in September. And this attack really pushed them to ship it to everybody. Again, phenomenal work by them. On top of that, they rolled out Sybil mitigations. Very cool. Bigger SSU2 IP tables, adjusted how the NetDB drops router info, and upgraded the SAMv3 API with replay-resistant datagrams support, all while a botnet that was 39 times their size was hammering them. And if we take that comparison to the Tor project, to like the next level, look at like Neil Krawitz, who spent years documenting vulnerabilities in Tor that went unfixed for over a decade. And he eventually gave up and his attempts to work with them, basically. And he said that he'd been met with everything from silence to outright hostility from the Tor project. So I2P's volunteer community really shipped post-quantum crypto while their network was on fire without a fraction of the budget that Tor has. So Kimwolf itself is basically falling apart. There's a guy named Benjamin over at Synthient that says the operators basically ran off their, competent developers. They lost like 600,000 infected systems through some rookie mistake. And according to him, they really don't seem to know what they're actually doing. So the immediate threat is fading. As people upgrade to the new updated 2.11 version, the network gets stronger and more jacked. So it's awesome. But the bigger problem actually still exists. I2P was, designed assuming that most people on the network would be honest. And when there's no cost to becoming a node, anyone with enough devices can flood the entire thing. And a botnet did it by accident. And, in 2013, the research showed that you could do it with one server and a half hour. And this kind of protocol level problem is a big problem. And you can't, really just patch it with some software bug, because any change hits every single node on the network, and you've really got to design it, test it, and roll it out without breaking everything, which is infinitely easier for me to say than for it to actually take place. So much so that I don't even know the intricacies of that or how they would accomplish it. But, in my opinion, these people are infinitely way smarter than me. And shout out to Not Bob. We haven't talked for a while. Be great to talk to you again, dude. The I2P devs, they know this, and 2.11.0 really shows that they move when it's really needed and when it really counts. If you're running I2P, update now, and the mitigations only work on the current version. So follow the GitHub issue for actual, real-time updates. And I wrote a full technical breakdown with diagrams and stuff on my blog if you guys want to check it out. But if you've been running I2P through this, tell me what you experienced in the comments, especially how things changed after you upgraded. I'd be very interested to know that. But in any case, stay safe, stay aware. There are adversaries out there. Thanks for watching to the end. I'll see you in the next video.